So as we sit here waiting on that wall to be built and paid for by Mexico, Mexico's first female president, I know that must be nice, has hit back at Trump after his latest late-night Truth Social tantrum.
A dispute between the president-elect of the U.S. and Mexico's president over a phone call. Who agreed to what and what it may mean for the U.S.-Mexico relationship. Donald Trump brought out some of his best words, for example, wonderful, to describe a conversation with Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum, ending his Truth Social post by claiming she agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States. Sheinbaum actually just responded moments ago, and the short version is never, no, not once, did she say anything of the kind.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
Now, if we know one thing about Donald J. Trump, he doesn't take too kindly to strong, opinionated women. I mean, who here remembers him sitting like a petulant child, refusing to shake the hand of Angela Merkel to appear tough to those on the Rogan Reddit threads. In fact, it couldn't be a more glaring sign of weakness.
Handshake.
Thank you. Handshake. Okay. Head up. Thank you, fellas. Fellas over here.
Well, after his latest threats to Mexico, akin to those he made during his first term, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum hit back at Trump's threat in a sharply worded statement, correctly outlining how, quote, 70% of the illegal weapons seized from criminals in Mexico come from your country, meaning, of course, the US. Further elaborating, we do not produce these weapons, nor do we consume synthetic drugs. Tragically, it is in our country that lives are lost to the violence resulting from meeting the drug demand in yours. Before going on to further humiliate the soon-to-be president, after he claimed in the wake of the call they had, she promised to close the border, which she, of course, begged to differ. Stating, quote, I shared with him that caravans weren't arriving at the northern border because they are being served in Mexico.
Sheinbaum on X was writing, we reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but to build bridges between governments and between peoples.
Trump is trying to rule with a stick and not a carrot. And we've seen this time and time again. He is out here trying to strong arm a leader, particularly a female leader. And he is known for saying things that, quite frankly, are not true. We'll never see the transcript of that call. We'll never, you can say it's he said, she said, but we've seen time and time again where Trump will say something that happened in a call that is absolutely not true about that call.
Now, the back and forth prompted a response from President Biden, who insisted the president-elect rethink his tariff approach, suspecting it will cause damage to the economy that Biden, of course, helped resuscitate after inheriting a train wreck.
I think it's a counterproductive thing to do. You know, look, one of the things you've heard me say before that we have an unusual situation in America. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and two allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
And he's not the only one that's warned of this, right? Even hosts on Trump's most prized megaphones of Fox News and CNBC outlined how these tariffs will likely reignite inflation.
It's going to create some winners and some losers, to be fair. But I do think that overall, it's going to benefit the entire whole of the United States of America. And I think that the overarching inflation is going to be mitigated by the benefit that we're going to receive by some of these trade offsets. So, look, and I think that Trump was successful in getting Mexico to help in the Remain in Mexico policy through his, in threat of tariffs. I think that in a lot of cases, these tariffs are mostly meant to try to bend these foreign governments into the will of the United States. So they're allies to us in some of these efforts.
You remember inflation, right? That hot button topic so many voters cast their ballot for the former president out of confidence he'd reduce.
You think that with all these different cross currents that were, tariffs were announced, or on day one he's going to try and do some of these things.
Yeah, but did you read what he announced and why? I think this is very important.
Yeah, with immigration and fentanyl. And
immigration and fentanyl.
I got it.
So what are you saying?
But with all these, I'm just wondering, and with, and Scott Bessent said he's going to get the tax cuts extended and do the no tax on tips, do all those things. Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market. Wouldn't you? I'm surprised the bond market it's very strange the 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this.
He's elected president, and he's going to attempt to destroy the Arizona economy. So I think
he
folks
feels a little differently, Senator. He feels a little differently about that. He uses that as a cudgel, if you will, to extract concessions. He does say the Mexicans aren't doing enough to sort of rein in the migrants who go from the south of Mexico all the way into our country, and that's a tool and an effective tool. What do you say?
Well, I mean, you got to take him at his word. I mean, if he doesn't see exactly the response he wants and he imposes, whether it's a 25% tariff or up to 100% tariff on, items being imported from Mexico, you got to remember, Neil, and I think you probably know this, Mexico is the United States' biggest trading partner. If Donald Trump kills trade with Mexico, he's killing jobs here in the United States. And when you combine that with what he said about the CHIPS Act, his plan, his economic plan is really, really awful for the state of Arizona.
Now, as we know, a key component of the Trump propaganda tactic is to cast Mexico as a major scapegoat for U.S. social problems, thus justifying in advance whatever Trump plans to throw at Mexico in the way of threats and bullying and tariffs and whatever else, only for nothing to change and him to still claim victory, knowing his base will just eat it up. Yes, we are back in 2017 already, folks.
Have a wall. We'd love to have a wall. Remember me? I said wall. And Mexico did pay for it. They gave us thousands and thousands of soldiers. They paid more. Remember, because there was no vehicle for that. I just want to set the record straight because I do everything. We got thousands of Mexicans patrolling our border, free of charge. I said to them,
the fact that we have Americans that are waking up and saying, wait a minute, are you saying that tariffs are going to negatively impact me? Are you saying that we're going to have to pay for this? It's kind of like that wall that we're still waiting on Mexico to build, right? That they're going to pay for it. No, we're going to pay for it. We're going to be the ones that are suffering. And for those that thought that inflation was bad, even though it has come down, even though that it is honestly, cooled off here a lot quicker than it cooled off in the rest of the world, let me just tell you, it's time to buckle up, Buttercup, because it is about to be on and popping if for some reason he gets half of this done. And right now, looking at the henchmen that he is trying to put into his administration, we are on track to see a lot of these negative things impact our economy.
As has been highlighted by countless economists across the US, both before the election and now after it, those Trump voters who cast their vote hoping the price of goods will go down will soon come to realize if his tariff threats are implemented, they voted for him to lower the price of eggs, and what they'll get is skyrocketing avocado prices.
Awaiting the inauguration of Donald Trump, who was elected by voters, basically begging for relief from high prices, who openly plans an inflationary trade war, with tariffs so insane that even Canada's most famous right-wing politician, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, said they were like a family member stabbing you in the heart this week. Mexico's president sent Trump an open letter blasting the tariff threat, suggesting the U.S. would face punishing tariffs and retaliation, which is usually how this goes. And still, many Americans seem to be taking Trump neither seriously nor literally on this campaign promise. If you're one of them, you might want to take note of a Trump administration appointment today. Trump announced his choice to be the U.S. trade representative, a lawyer named Jamison Greer. Now, Greer previously served as chief of staff to Trump's former U.S. trade representative, Robert Lighthizer. He's the architect of that the tariffs they did the last time around on $370 billion worth of Chinese imports. Those tariffs, as we reported on the show, spurred a trade war, nearly broke the backs of American farmers who lost access to their top Asian market. Just like the Tories and Truss in London 2 years ago, Donald Trump has told us what he plans to do. And just like them, the critics have said, this looks like it's going to be devastating if you do it. And now I guess we just wait, right? To see if we're about to enter the finding out phase of the story.
If you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring down the cost of housing, a lot of our lumber, cement, other materials comes from Canada, which means that construction costs are going to go up. Not to mention all of the ways he's going to roil the U.S. auto industry, because a lot of autos cross borders in North America multiple times before they're ultimately finished and sold to consumers. Not to mention the fact that a lot of U.S. manufacturers purchase inputs, intermediate goods like metals and cement and other things from Canada, from Mexico. And not to mention even the retaliation that we should expect. All of which is going to be very bad for consumers, not to mention, again, many of the U.S. workers that Trump allegedly wants to help.
What about tequila?
But if this back and forth is anything to go by, right, the president of Mexico is unwilling to sit idly by while Trump fearmongers and bullies for the camera. A stark warning for his upcoming term.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.